Right. Hey guys. So now that we have completed the Civil War, which was from 1861 to 1865, it's time to move on to the next time period that we're going to study, which is Reconstruction. Now, Reconstruction is the time period after the Civil War. It lasts about 12 years. And to understand what this is all about, we need to look at what the name of the period means. So we're looking at the word reconstruction. Construction means to build something, means to do it again. So the simple understanding of what Reconstruction is all about is rebuilding the United States after the war. Okay, so not only is this some of it's literal, during the war, lots of buildings, homes, businesses, even like government buildings were destroyed, especially in the South, because remember, a lot of the fighting happened on farms and in towns and in cities all over the United States. So some of this is literal rebuilding. During Sherman's March to the Sea, remember, he destroyed everything in his path: farms, homes, railroad tracks, anything that was in his way, he destroyed it. And so now that the war's over, the USA has to go back into those places that have been virtually destroyed, and they have to figure out how to rebuild them, because the southern states need to figure out how they're going to make money now that the war is over. Because one of the things that happens after the war is over is that slavery is no longer going to be an option. Slavery is going to be banned or abolished or gotten rid of in the United States. And so now the South has to figure out a new way to make money. The other thing is that the southern states, when they left the USA, when they seceded and joined the Confederate States of America, they left the USA. Well, now that the war's over and the Confederate states have fallen apart, they don't officially belong to the USA again. So now they're going to have to ask to come back. So the U.S. government is going to have a lot of changes as a result of the war ending. And one of the things that has to happen is that the North and the South have to kind of come together, and they have to figure out now, like, how do we let the South back in? What do we do with all those people who used to be slaves but are not slaves anymore? And so during this time period, the U.S. government comes up with three really important amendments that they pass. And they pass them during Reconstruction, so we call them the Reconstruction Amendments. Now, these three amendments, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th, deal with former slaves. They are now called freedmen because they are no longer slaves, they're free. So the 13th Amendment officially ends slavery, abolishes it forever. It is never allowed in the United States again. The 14th Amendment makes all those former slaves into citizens of the United States. And the 15th Amendment says that the men, the Black men who are now free, are going to be able to vote. So all of those amendments come together and they're answering this big question. And the big question that comes up with Reconstruction is not only how are we going to get the North and the South to work together, how are we going to come back together as a country, but this other big question is, how is the USA going to protect the rights of former slaves who are now free people? So these amendments are really aimed at doing that. They're aimed at protecting the civil rights or freedoms that every citizen of America should have, regardless of what color they are. Okay, so if you look at this image here, I just want to show you a few things. So this is looking at a freedman's family. So this is showcasing a person a man who used to be a slave, probably his wife and his children were as well. And now that he's been freed, this is what his life used to look like during slavery. And now that they have been emancipated, which is that's a fancy word for freedom, on this side is what their life looks like now. So living independently, being able to vote, having their own farm, land, jobs, being able to make their own choices. So all of these things come together to form what Reconstruction is really all about, which is answering this question: how do we protect the rights of former slaves?